After delivering over 30% AUM growth in recent years, India's affordable housing finance companies are now entering a more moderate phase of expansion. On our latest episode of Deep Dive, we have Rishi Anand, the MD and CEO of Aadhar Housing, to discuss this new phase with us. Let's listen in to this slice of that conversation.
Certain segments of this spectrum, there were challenges around, whether it was supply side or demand side. But when I look at my own segment, the segment has been growing at about 22% CAGR. And if you look at the performance of Aadhar Housing Finance, that's what we've been delivering, 21% AUM growth. Till about 9 months, till December this year also, we are 20% plus AUM growth. And I don't see any reason why we should not be closing the year at about 21% upward growth. So the trajectory has been good for low-income housing finance companies, and you're right when you made that statement that there are tailwinds which are pushing the growth. There is too much that is happening from right from the central government to various state governments to the regulator, which is National Housing Bank. I think there is this entire positivity. There are multiple schemes that are running right from PMAY 2.0 to the Swami scheme, which funds stalled projects up to 10,000 crores. So there is multiple things happening on the supply side, like 3 crore housing units coming by both by the intervention of central and state government. So in all this, somebody is going to be funding all this, and that's where I would say the tailwind is coming from.
Just to circle back to where we started off with the high growth segment of 30-35%. What led to that slowdown in between for this entire segment?
So overall, if you talk about the housing finance space, the housing finance industry, it was growing at about 26-27%, which was a couple of years back. I think it was to do with multiple factors, right from the supply side of affordable housing, various government interventions which were expected. I think a multiple of these interventions which came only last financial year actually led to the slight slowdown, because if you look at certain statistics, right from the developer units available for affordable housing, developer units overall available, there were market reports which said that in the premium housing segment there was the supply side was higher, whereas on the affordable, which is lower middle income group, and the group that I cater to, the supply side was slightly lower. Was also to do with the kind of construction cost, the kind of land availability at subsidized price, so multiple factors. But as I said, the good part in the area that I operate is my customers don't look at these supplies, because they are more, if I can quote, 35% of my consumers do something called self-construction, and then there are 30% of the customers who buy ready-built property. My customer does not buy builder-led developed properties. So I would say overall, multiple things, right, as I indicated, right from land availability to cost of construction to various government schemes which was expected. There was a slight I would not want to use the word slowdown, but I think that was a right slight wait period that happened, and we are all back in business. The entire industry is back in business.
Are you also seeing a lot of supply now coming back into the market? Because that's also a pool that determines the kind of growth that's going to come in. Of course, the self-constructed houses are also one part of it, but builder-led or ready to move in kind of houses which are less than 15 lakhs. Is there an increase in supply for them?
So Sajidji, what happens is, as I told you, 35% of my customer is self-construction. Now, this data, unfortunately does not reflect anywhere. When we talk about, industry statistics on supply side, this data is not reflected. What data is reflected is, what happens at sub-registrar office, how many registries are happening. So resale side, we are seeing an uptick happening, especially when I talk about, tier 2 and beyond. There is an uptick that we can clearly see. So these are positive trends that is visible. And for us, we have internal data on self-construction, so we are seeing an uprise in self-construction business as well.
And people in tier 2 and tier 3, or maybe other sectors, are going for self-construction led by support which is coming from PMAY and others. Is that what you see?
So PMAY actually works, whether it is self construction or whether it is resale. Sajid ji, it works both ways. Eventually when the loan is disbursed by a housing finance company, the data is submitted to Ministry of Urban Affairs, where the subsidy is approved. So it is a refinance model. So once the loan is done, refinance comes to the consumer. So it is not with respect to any particular type of construction or resale. Subsidy is available to every consumer, and subsidy is actually helping. If I talk about my numbers in PMAY 1.0, we gave subsidy to about 90,000 plus customers. And in PMAY 2.0, which actually kicked off around October, November, we've already given about 14,800 consumers have availed the subsidy. So subsidy is helping both on, CLSS, and subsidy also, if you look at the bigger umbrella, which is PMAY, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, it has not only, so subsidy is just one part of it. The other part of it is, supporting the construction, the 3 crore unit that I spoke about under the affordable initiative of PMAY. Those 3 crore houses have been under process, so that is under the PMAY umbrella, which is definitely going to give a big push to consumption.
Uh, Under such a business environment as of now, how are housing finance companies differentiating themselves in this sector? Of course, housing loan is one key sector for them. Are you looking at non-housing loan as one of the segments as well? Are companies diversifying their risk as well?
So, Sajiji, the way it happens is all the housing finance companies have work under the larger umbrella called mortgage loans. Within that larger umbrella, there are two kinds of products. One is housing loan. Housing loan can be for a purpose of acquiring or making a house. So it can be self-construction or resale property or even developer-led property. The second part is loan against property. It is a part of the overall mortgage umbrella. And most of the companies do a little bit of loan against property. For example, in case of Aadhar Housing Finance, our portfolio has about 27% of the portfolio is loan against property. Can housing finance companies go ahead and add more products? They can, but everything gets added to loan against property because that is not for housing need. Uh, the challenge for housing finance companies will be that we are guided. Since we are a housing finance company, we are guided by something called by the PCB norms, which is PBC norms, which is the principal business criteria. 60% of our balance sheet has to be retail, home loans.